Welcome back. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and discovering that it might be worth far more than 1 cent. Not because it's made of gold, not because it's ancient, but because of something most people would never notice. Today, we're uncovering the story of the 1973 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that looks ordinary, yet holds a quiet mystery that continues to intrigue collectors. The 1973 Lincoln penny is one of those coins that millions of Americans have handled without a second thought. At first glance, it doesn't stand out. It's small, copper-colored, and carries the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln on the front. On the back, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used for decades. But what makes this coin interesting is not what you see immediately. It's what you don't see. And that missing detail has sparked confusion, curiosity, and even excitement among collectors. To understand this coin, we need to go back to 1973. The United States Mint was producing billions of pennies every year to keep up with demand. At that time, pennies were still made mostly of copper, giving them that rich, warm color. The country was going through economic changes, and small coins like pennies were essential for everyday transactions. People used them constantly, and very few thought about saving them. The 1973 Lincoln penny was minted in 3 main locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each mint had its own identifying mark, usually a small letter placed on the front of the coin, just below the year. Denver coins had a D, San Francisco coins had an S, and Philadelphia coins, at that time, typically had no mint mark at all. This is where the confusion begins. Many people hear no mint mark and assume they found something rare or unusual. But for 1973, a penny without a mint mark simply means it was made in Philadelphia. It's not an error. It's not a mistake. It's actually the standard version of that coin. And because Philadelphia produced such a large number of these pennies, they are very common today. But don't lose interest just yet, because there's more to the story. While most 1973 no mint mark pennies are common, certain versions and conditions can make them surprisingly valuable. Let's take a closer look at the coin itself. On the front, you'll see the profile of Abraham Lincoln, a design created by Victor David Brenner in 1909. Above Lincoln's head is the word Liberty, and to the right is the year 1973. The phrase "In God We Trust" curves along the top edge. The absence of a mint mark below the date is what identifies it as a Philadelphia coin. On the reverse side, the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly in the center. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny representation of Lincoln seated inside the memorial. Above it reads United States of America, and below it is the denomination 1 cent. The phrase "E pluribus unum" appears above the memorial, tying the design together. The coin is made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, which was the standard composition before changes in the early 1980s. Because of this high copper content, many collectors appreciate these older pennies for their metal value alone, even if it's small. Now, let's talk about what can make a 1973 no mint mark penny valuable. The biggest factor is condition. Most of these coins were heavily used in circulation, meaning they became worn, scratched, and discolored over time. But if you find one in near-perfect condition, something collectors call mint state, it can be worth significantly more. Another factor is color. Copper coins change color as they age. A freshly minted penny has a bright red appearance, known as red by collectors. Over time, it turns to a brown shade. Coins that have their original red color are much more desirable and can command higher prices. There are also error coins to consider. While the standard no mint mark version is common, certain mistakes during the minting process can make a coin rare. For example, off-center strikes, double dies, or coins struck on the wrong planchet can all increase value. These errors are not easy to find, but when they do appear, they attract serious attention. So how much is a 1973 no mint mark penny actually worth? In most cases, if the coin is worn and circulated, it's worth only a few cents above face value. But in uncirculated condition, especially with a bright red finish, the value can rise to a few dollars, sometimes even more depending on grading. In rare cases, high-grade examples have sold for much higher prices. Coins graded at the very top of the scale, nearly flawless, have been known to reach into the hundreds of dollars at auction. These are not typical finds, but they prove that even a common coin can become valuable under the right circumstances. If you think you might have one of these pennies, how can you tell if it's genuine or worth anything? Start by checking the date and looking for the absence of a mint mark. Then examine the coin's condition. Is the surface smooth or heavily worn? Does it still have a bright copper color, or has it turned dark brown? You can also use a magnifying glass to look for unusual features. Check for doubling in the letters or numbers, or any signs that the design is off-center. These small details can make a big difference. Another tip is to weigh the coin. A genuine 1973 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If the weight is significantly off, it could indicate damage or a different composition. While counterfeit pennies are rare, it's always good to be cautious. One interesting fact about the 1973 penny is how it reflects a time before major changes in coin production. Just a few years later, rising copper prices would force the U.S. Mint to alter the composition of pennies. This makes pre-1982 pennies, including the 1973 version, part of a fading era of American coinage. Another surprising detail is how many of these coins are still out there. Because so many were produced, it's entirely possible to find one in your change even today. That's part of what makes coin collecting so exciting. You never know what you might come across in everyday life. Collectors love the 1973 no mint mark penny not because it's rare in the traditional sense, but because it represents accessibility. It's a coin that anyone can find, study, and appreciate. For beginners, it's a perfect starting point. For experienced collectors, it's a reminder that even the most common coins can hold hidden value. There's also a sense of nostalgia attached to it. These pennies passed through countless hands, from grocery stores to vending machines, carrying small stories with them. Each scratch and mark tells a piece of history, connecting us to a different time. And perhaps that's the real beauty of this coin. It's not just about money. It's about discovery. It's about taking something ordinary and seeing it in a new way. A simple penny becomes a piece of history, a small artifact from 1973 that still exists today. So the next time you see a penny with no mint mark, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Check the date. Examine the details. Because hidden in that tiny piece of copper could be more than just 1 cent. It could be a story waiting to be uncovered, a small treasure hiding in plain sight. And who knows? The next coin you find might be the one that surprises you the most. Welcome back. What if the penny sitting quietly in your pocket right now, the one you wouldn't even bother picking up off the ground, could actually be worth far more than 1 cent? Today, we're diving into the story of the 1979 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that looks completely ordinary at first glance, but holds secrets that collectors have been chasing for decades. The 1979 D Lincoln penny is part of one of the longest-running coin series in American history. This small copper-colored coin was produced at the Denver Mint, which is why you'll find a tiny D mint mark just below the date on the front. At the time, millions of these pennies were made and released into circulation, used every day in grocery stores, vending machines, and pockets across the country. On the surface, there's nothing unusual about it. It's just another Lincoln cent. But as with many coins, the real story begins when you look closer. To understand this coin, we need to go back in time. The Lincoln penny itself was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure instead of symbolic imagery. By 1979, the design had already been in use for decades, making it one of the most familiar coins in American life. The front of the coin features a portrait of Abraham Lincoln, originally designed by Victor David Brenner. It shows Lincoln in profile, calm and thoughtful, facing to the right. Above his head, you'll see the word liberty, and the phrase "In God We Trust" arches along the top. The date 1979 sits just to the right of Lincoln, with the small D mint mark below it. Flip the coin over, and you'll find the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side, a design that had been used since 1959. If you look very closely at the center of the memorial, you can actually see a tiny image of Lincoln sitting inside. It's a small detail, but one that has fascinated collectors for years. Now here's where things start to get interesting. In 1979, the U.S. Mint produced billions of pennies. The Denver Mint alone struck over 4 billion coins that year. With numbers that high, you might think there's no chance of rarity. And in most cases, you'd be right. The average 1979 D penny is still worth just 1 cent, but coin collecting isn't about the average. It's about the exceptions. What makes certain 1979 D pennies valuable comes down to a combination of condition, errors, and subtle variations that most people would never notice. Let's start with the metal composition. The 1979 penny is made mostly of copper, with a small percentage of zinc. This was before the major composition change in 1982, when pennies became primarily zinc with a thin copper coating. Because of this, the 1979 penny has a slightly heavier and more solid feel compared to modern pennies. Now let's talk about condition. In the world of coin collecting, condition is everything. Coins are graded on a scale, and the difference between a heavily worn coin and one in near-perfect condition can mean the difference between 1 cent and hundreds of dollars. A 1979 D penny that has never been circulated, meaning it was never used in everyday transactions, can be worth significantly more. These are known as mint state coins. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin becomes. For example, a typical circulated 1979 D penny might be worth exactly 1 cent. But a high-grade uncirculated example, especially one graded MS65 or higher, can sell for several dollars, sometimes even more depending on its quality and luster. But the real excitement comes from errors. Mint errors happen when something goes wrong during the coin-making process. These mistakes can turn an ordinary coin into something rare and highly collectible. One type of error to look for is a double die. This happens when the coin's design is stamped more than once, slightly misaligned, creating a doubling effect on the letters or numbers. On a 1979 D penny, you might notice doubling in the date or in the word Liberty. These errors can be subtle, but they are highly sought after. Another possible error is an off-center strike. This occurs when the coin isn't properly aligned during minting, causing part of the design to be missing or shifted. Depending on how dramatic the error is, these coins can be worth significantly more than face value. There are also die cracks, where small lines appear on the coin due to cracks in the minting equipment. While not always extremely valuable, they can still add interest and collectible appeal. And then there are rare cases of coins struck on the wrong planchet, meaning the blank piece of metal used to make the coin wasn't intended for that denomination. These are extremely rare but can command very high prices when discovered. Now let's look at real-world value examples. Over the years, collectors have paid surprising amounts for high-quality 1979 D pennies. A standard uncirculated coin might sell for a few dollars, but top-grade examples graded MS67 or higher have reached prices in the hundreds. Error coins can go even higher. Depending on the type and visibility of the error, some have sold for tens or even hundreds of dollars. In rare cases, exceptional error coins can reach even more. So how can you tell if you have something special? Start by examining the coin carefully. Look at the date and mint mark. Make sure the D is clearly visible under the year. Check the surface for unusual features like doubling, cracks, or misalignment. Next, pay attention to the coin's condition. Does it still have its original shine, known as luster? Are the details sharp and clear, or worn down from years of use? Weight can also be a clue. A standard 1979 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If your coin feels unusually light or heavy, it could be worth investigating further. Using a magnifying glass or a simple coin loop can help you spot details that aren't visible to the naked eye. Many valuable coins are overlooked simply because people don't take the time to look closely. Another important step is verification. If you believe you've found a rare or valuable coin, it's a good idea to have it evaluated by a professional grading service. These experts can confirm authenticity and assign a grade, which can significantly impact the coin's value. Now here's something most people don't realize. Even though billions of 1979 D pennies were made, very few have survived in top condition. Most were heavily used, scratched, or damaged over time. Finding one in near-perfect condition today is much harder than it sounds. This is one of the reasons collectors are so interested in this coin. It's not just about rarity in numbers. It's about rarity in quality. There's also a nostalgic factor. For many collectors, coins like the 1979 D penny represent a connection to everyday American life in the late 1970s. It's a small piece of history you can hold in your hand, and then there's the thrill of the hunt. Collectors love the idea that valuable coins can still be found in circulation, in old jars, or even in loose change. The 1979 D penny is a perfect example of this. It reminds us that hidden value can exist in the most ordinary places. Here's a fun fact. If you line up 1 billion pennies, they would stretch for thousands of miles. And yet, among those billions, only a tiny fraction would meet the high standards collectors are looking for. Another surprising detail. Welcome back. What if I told you that a simple penny from 1985, the kind many people ignore or spend without thinking, could quietly hold far more value than its 1 cent face value? Hidden in plain sight, this small copper coin has a story that most people never hear, and today you might start looking at your spare change very differently. The coin we're talking about is the 1985 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny. At first glance, it looks like any ordinary penny. You've probably seen dozens of them, maybe even held one without realizing it. But this particular coin carries a unique combination of history, design, and hidden details that have made it a favorite among collectors and coin enthusiasts. To understand why this coin matters, we need to go back to 1985. The United States was in a period of economic growth, and the demand for coins in circulation was high. The U.S. Mint was producing millions of pennies to keep up with everyday transactions. The Denver Mint, identified by the small D Mint mark on the coin, played a major role in this production. In fact, billions of pennies were struck that year, making the 1985 D penny very common in circulation. But here's where things get interesting. Not all coins are created equal, even when they come from the same year and the same mint. Small variations, production quirks, and even mistakes can turn an ordinary coin into something collectors are willing to pay much more for. The 1985 D Lincoln penny features the classic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design that has been in use since 1909. This was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure, honoring President Abraham Lincoln on the 100th anniversary of his birth. The back of the coin, in 1985, still displayed the familiar wheatless design introduced in 1959, showing the Lincoln Memorial to BY 1985. The composition of the penny had already changed from mostly copper to a zinc core with a thin copper coating. This change happened in 1982 due to rising copper prices. So, the 1985 D penny is primarily made of zinc, with only a small outer layer of copper. It weighs about 2.5 grams, lighter than older pennies made before 1982. Now, while billions of these coins were produced, collectors aren't just looking for any 1985 D penny. They are searching for the exceptional ones. Coins in perfect condition, known as uncirculated or mint state coins, can be surprisingly valuable. The grading scale goes up to MS70, which represents a flawless coin. While most coins in circulation show wear and scratches, a perfectly preserved 1985 D penny can stand out significantly. Some of the highest graded examples of the 1985 D penny have sold for impressive amounts. Coins graded MS67 or higher have reached prices ranging from several hundred to even over $1,000 in auctions. That's a huge jump from just 1 cent. The reason is simple. It's not just about age or rarity in terms of quantity, but rarity in condition. Finding a coin from 1985 that looks almost exactly as it did the day it was minted is extremely difficult. Another factor that adds excitement to this coin is the possibility of mint errors. Errors are like little accidents that happen during the coin-making process, and collectors love them because they are unique. Some 1985 D pennies have been found with off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned. Others show double die errors, where parts of the design appear duplicated due to a misalignment during the striking process. There are also cases of coins with die cracks, where small lines appear on the surface because the minting die itself was damaged. While these may sound like flaws in the world of coin collecting, they can actually increase a coin's value significantly, especially if the error is clear and visually interesting. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 1985 D penny? First, look for the mint mark. Under the date on the front of the coin, you should see a small D, indicating it was minted in Denver. Next, examine the condition. Is the coin shiny? Are the details sharp, especially on Lincoln's face and the Lincoln Memorial? The less where you see, the better. You should also check for unusual features. Look closely at the lettering and numbers. Do you notice any doubling? Is the design off-center? Are there cracks or odd lines that don't seem normal? These small details could be signs of an error coin. Weight can also be an important clue. A standard 1985 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. If you find one that weighs significantly more or less, it could indicate a rare variation or even a minting mistake. However, you should always verify unusual findings with a professional coin grading service to be sure. Now, let's talk about something many people wonder. Are there fake 1985D pennies? While counterfeit pennies are not as common as fake gold or silver coins, they do exist, especially when it comes to coins that appear to have rare errors. Some people try to alter coins to make them look like error coins. For example, they might manually damage a coin to mimic an off-center strike or try to create the appearance of doubling. To avoid being misled, always compare your coin with verified examples and, if possible, get it authenticated by a reputable grading company. Professional graders use specialized tools and years of experience to determine whether a coin is genuine and to assign it an official grade. Here's a fun fact that might surprise you. Even though the 1985D penny is considered modern by collectors, it's already over 40 years old. That means many of these coins have been lost, damaged, or worn down through decades of use. As time goes on, high-quality examples become even harder to find, which can increase their value. Another interesting detail is how collectors often search through rolls of pennies from banks, hoping to find hidden gems like a high-grade 1985D or a rare error coin. This practice, known as coin roll hunting, has become a popular hobby. It turns everyday coins into a kind of treasure hunt, where the reward could be something truly special. Collectors are drawn to the 1985D Lincoln penny for several reasons. It represents a specific moment in U.S. coin history, after the major composition change but before the design changed again in 2009. It's also accessible, meaning almost anyone can start looking for one without spending a lot of money. And most importantly, it carries the excitement of possibility. Even though millions were made, the chance of finding a rare, high-grade, or error version keeps people searching. There's also a deeper emotional connection. Coins like the 1985D penny have passed through countless hands, across stores, cities, and states. Each one has its own unseen journey. When a collector finds a pristine example or a rare error, it feels like uncovering a hidden piece of history that in today's market. The value of a 1985D penny depends heavily on its condition and any unique features it may have. A worn, circulated coin might only be worth its face value. But a bright, uncirculated coin with sharp details could be worth several dollars, and a top-grade or error coin could reach into the hundreds or more. The key is patience and attention to detail. Most valuable coins are discovered by people who take the time to look closely and learn what to watch for. It's not about luck alone. It's about knowing where to look and recognizing something unusual when you see it. As we come to the end of this story, think about the coins you've seen today. How many pennies have you ignored or spent without a second thought? The 1985D Lincoln penny reminds us that even the smallest, most common objects can hold hidden value. Sometimes, all it takes is a closer look. So next time you find a penny in your pocket or on the ground, don't rush to dismiss it. Take a moment, check the date. Look for that small D. Because you never know, that ordinary-looking coin might just be a small piece of history waiting to be discovered, and possibly worth far more than you ever expected. What if the penny sitting in your pocket right now is hiding a story that most people completely overlook? A story that could turn an ordinary coin into something collectors quietly search for every day. Today, we're talking about the 1990 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that at first glance looks incredibly common, almost boring. But as we dig deeper, you'll start to see why this small copper coin still holds attention in the world of collectors, and why some versions of it can be worth far more than 1 cent. The 1990 Lincoln penny without a mint mark was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. At that time, coins made in Philadelphia typically did not carry a mint mark, unlike coins from Denver or San Francisco. So, Seeing no mint mark on a 1990 penny is actually normal. But that's where the story begins, not where it ends. To understand this coin, we have to go back to its purpose. The Lincoln Cent series has been part of American history since 1909, created to honor President Abraham Lincoln. By 1990, the design had already been in use for decades. On the front, you see Lincoln's profile, calm and familiar, with the words, "In God We Trust," above, "Liberty" on the side, and the date stamped clearly. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall, a symbol of unity and history. But what makes the 1990 penny interesting isn't just its design. It's the details that most people ignore. By 1990, pennies were no longer made mostly of copper. Earlier pennies, before 1982, were composed primarily of copper. But rising metal costs forced a change. The 1990 penny is made mostly of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This gives it that familiar color, but inside, it's a different material entirely. This shift in composition is important because it affects how the coin ages, how it looks over time, and even how errors can appear. Now here's where things start to get more interesting. Even though millions upon millions of 1990 no mint mark pennies were produced, not all of them are equal. Most are only worth face value. But certain examples stand out because of condition, errors, or unique characteristics. Let's talk about condition first. In the coin collecting world, condition is everything. A 1990 penny that has been circulated, scratched, or worn down is usually just a penny. But if you find one that looks almost brand new, with sharp details and no visible damage, its value can increase significantly. These are called uncirculated coins, and collectors are always searching for the best preserved examples. Some high-grade 1990 no mint mark pennies have sold for several dollars, sometimes even higher depending on their grading. While that might not sound life-changing, it's a huge jump from 1 cent. And for collectors, finding one in perfect condition is part of the excitement. But condition is only one piece of the puzzle. Errors are where things can get truly fascinating. Coin errors happen during the minting process, and they can turn an ordinary coin into something rare. With the 1990 penny, collectors have reported a variety of possible errors. These include off-center strikes, where the design is not perfectly aligned, and double dies, where parts of the lettering appear duplicated due to a misalignment during production. One of the most talked about possibilities is the double die effect. This is when the coin shows a slight doubling in areas like the date or lettering. It's not always easy to spot, and sometimes you need magnification to see it clearly. But when it's confirmed, it can increase the coin's value dramatically. There are also coins with weak strikes, where parts of the design look faded or incomplete. While this might seem like damage, it's actually a minting issue. In some cases, collectors find these variations interesting and valuable. Another detail to look for is the color of the coin. Even though all 1990 pennies were made with the same materials, their appearance can vary. Some may appear more red, others more brown. In coin grading, you'll often see terms like red, red-brown, and brown. Fully red coins, especially in uncirculated condition, are generally more desirable and can fetch higher prices. Now let's talk about real-world value examples. While most 1990 no mint mark pennies are worth just a cent, high-grade versions graded by professional services have sold for anywhere from a few dollars to over $20 or more. Coins with verified errors can go even higher, depending on the rarity and visibility of the mistake. It's important to understand that not every coin you find will be valuable. The majority are still common. But the possibility of finding something unusual is what keeps collectors searching. So how can you tell if your 1990 penny is worth more than face value? Start by checking the basics. Look at the front of the coin and confirm the date is 1990. Then check for a mint mark. If there is no mint mark under the date, it was made in Philadelphia, which is exactly what we're focusing on. Next, examine the condition. Is the coin shiny? Are the details sharp? Can you clearly see Lincoln's features and the lines of the memorial on the back? The better the condition, the higher the potential value. Then, look closely for errors. Use a magnifying glass if possible. Check the lettering, especially Liberty, and the date. Do you notice any doubling? Is the design off-center? Does anything look unusual or different from a typical penny? Weight can also be a clue. A standard 1990 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. If it's significantly different, that could indicate something unusual. Although this is less common, it's also important to be cautious of cleaned or altered coins. Some people try to make coins look better by cleaning them, but this can actually reduce their value. A natural, original appearance is always preferred by collectors. Now here's something many people don't realize. Even though the 1990 no mint mark penny isn't considered rare in the traditional sense, it represents a moment in the evolution of U.S. coinage. It's part of the era when pennies shifted to modern materials, and it continues a design that remained unchanged for nearly 50 years before being replaced in 2009. Another surprising fact is that the Lincoln Memorial on the back actually shows a tiny image of Lincoln sitting inside. It's incredibly small, but if you look closely, you can see it. This level of detail is one of the reasons the design is so admired. Collectors today love coins like the 1990 penny not because they are all valuable, but because they are accessible. Anyone can find one. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars or visit rare auctions. You can simply check your pocket change, a jar at home, or coins passed down from family. And that's part of the magic. The idea that something so small and ordinary could have hidden value makes collecting exciting. It turns everyday objects into potential discoveries. There's also a sense of connection to history. Every 1990 penny has passed through countless hands over the years. It may have been used in stores, saved in jars, or carried across states. Each coin has its own journey, even if we'll never know the full story. For beginners, this coin is often one of the first they examine closely. It teaches important lessons about condition, errors, and how small details can make a big difference. For experienced collectors, it's another opportunity to search for perfection or rare variations. In the end, the 1990 no mint mark Lincoln penny is a reminder that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it's hidden in the details, waiting for someone curious enough to look closer. So the next time you come across a penny, don't ignore it. Take a second look, because that simple coin might just have more to tell than you ever expected. And who knows, the next one you find could be the piece that turns an ordinary moment into an unforgettable discovery. Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out a simple penny, only to discover it might be worth far more than 1 cent. Not because it's gold, not because it's ancient, but because of something so small most people would never even notice it. Today, we're talking about the 1991 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that millions of people have seen, but very few have truly understood. At first glance, the 1991 penny looks completely ordinary. It carries the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design that has been part of American currency for decades. On the back, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, a symbol recognized across the country. This coin was part of everyday life, used in stores, dropped into jars, and often forgotten. But hidden within these everyday coins is a story that collectors continue to explore. To understand this coin, we need to go back to 1991. The United States Mint was producing billions of pennies each year to meet the needs of the economy. These coins were struck in different locations, including Philadelphia and Denver. Typically, coins from Denver carry a small D mint mark, while coins from Philadelphia often have no mint mark at all. That's where the curiosity begins. The 1991 penny with no mint mark was produced in Philadelphia, one of the main minting facilities in the country. Unlike some earlier coins, where the absence of a mint mark could signal something unusual, by 1991, it was actually standard for Philadelphia coins to have no mint mark. So, at first, this doesn't sound rare at all. In fact, over 5 billion of these pennies were made. That's right, billions. So why are collectors even interested in this coin? The answer lies not in the basic version of the coin, but in the details. When it comes to coin collecting, small differences can mean everything. Tiny variations, minting mistakes, or unusual features can turn an ordinary coin into something special. Let's talk about the physical features of the 1991 Lincoln penny. The coin is made mostly of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This composition was introduced in the early 1980s to reduce production costs. The coin weighs about 2.5 grams and has a smooth edge. On the front, you'll see Abraham Lincoln's profile facing right, along with the words, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the year 1991. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall, with the words, United States of America, and 1 cent. Now here's where things get interesting. While most 1991 no-mint mark pennies are extremely common, some rare variations and errors have been discovered over the years. These are the coins that collectors search for. One of the most talked about features is the close AM variety. This refers to the spacing between the letters A and M in the word America. On the reverse side of the coin in a typical 1991 penny, the letters A and M are spaced slightly apart. But in rare cases, these letters appear much closer together, almost touching. This design was actually intended for proof coins, not regular circulation coins. Somehow, a small number of these proof-style dies were used in regular production, creating a rare and valuable variety. These close AM pennies are not easy to find. You could search through thousands of coins and never come across one. But for those who do, the reward can be significant. Collectors have reported sales of 1991 close AM pennies reaching hundreds, and in some cases, even over $1,000, depending on the coin's condition. A well-preserved example with sharp details and minimal wear can attract serious attention in the collector market. Another factor that can increase the value of a 1991 no-mint mark penny is its condition. Coins are graded on a scale that measures how much wear they have. A coin that has never been used in circulation, often called mint state, can be worth much more than one that has been heavily used. Even a common coin can become valuable if it is in near-perfect condition. There are also other types of errors that collectors look for. These include off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned, and double dies, where parts of the design appear duplicated due to a misalignment during the minting process. While these errors are rare, they can significantly increase a coin's value. Now, you might be wondering how to tell if you have one of these rare coins. The first step is to examine the coin carefully. Look at the date and confirm it says 1991. Then check for the mint mark. If there is no mint mark under the date, it was made in Philadelphia. Next, turn the coin over and look closely at the word America. Pay special attention to the spacing between the A and the M. If they appear very close together, you might have the rare close AM variety. It's also important to use good lighting and, if possible, a magnifying glass. Small details can be hard to see with the naked eye. Comparing your coin to images of known examples can also help you spot differences. Of course, not every unusual-looking coin is valuable. Some coins may be damaged after leaving the mint, which does not increase their value. Scratches, dents, and discoloration are usually signs of wear, not rarity. That's why collectors often rely on professional grading services to confirm a coin's authenticity and condition. Here's something surprising. Even though billions of 1991 pennies were made, very few people actually take the time to look at them closely. Most coins pass through countless hands without anyone noticing their details. This means that rare varieties could still be hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered. Another interesting fact is that the Lincoln penny design has gone through several changes over the years, but it remains one of the longest-running designs in U.S. history. Introduced in 1909, it was the first American coin to feature a real person. By 1991, it had already been in circulation for over 80 years, making it a familiar part of everyday life. Collectors love coins like the 1991 no-mint mark penny because they represent a mix of history, mystery, and possibility. On one hand, it's a common coin that anyone can find. On the other hand, it holds the potential for hidden value. That combination keeps people searching, checking their change, and hoping to find something special. There's also a sense of connection to the past. Every coin tells a story, not just about when it was made, but about where it has been. A single penny could have traveled across the country, passed through hundreds of hands, and been part of countless transactions. Holding it is like holding a small piece of history in today's world, where digital payments are becoming more common. Physical coins are starting to feel more meaningful. They are tangible, real, and full of character. For collectors, this makes them even more appealing. So, is the 1991 no-mint mark penny worth a fortune? In most cases, no. The majority of these coins are still worth just 1 cent. But the possibility that a rare variation or high-grade example could be worth much more is what makes this coin so fascinating. The next time you come across a penny, Take a moment to, what if the small penny sitting in your pocket right now could quietly be worth hundreds, or even thousands of dollars? It sounds unbelievable, but for some collectors, that discovery has already happened. And today, we're diving into one of those coins that hides more mystery than most people realize. The 1992D Mint Mark Lincoln Penny. At first glance, the 1992D Lincoln Penny looks completely ordinary. It's a small copper-colored coin, something millions of Americans have handled without a second thought. But behind that simple design lies a story of history, production changes, and one very rare detail that has turned a few of these pennies into prized collectibles. The 1992D penny was produced at the Denver Mint, which is why you'll see a small D just below the date on the front of the coin. This coin is part of the long-running Lincoln Cent series, first introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln. By 1992, the design had already become one of the most recognizable coins in American history. On the front, you'll see Lincoln's portrait, facing right, along with the words, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the year 1992. On the back, the coin still featured the classic Lincoln Memorial design, which had been in use since 1959. Now, here's where things start to get interesting. The early 1990s were a time of transition for the U.S. Mint. Costs of materials were rising, and the Mint was constantly looking for ways to improve production efficiency. While the composition of the penny had already changed back in 1982 from mostly copper to a zinc core with a thin copper coating, subtle design adjustments continued behind the scenes. Most 1992D pennies were struck in huge numbers, over 4.4 billion of them. That means the vast majority are still only worth 1 cent. But within that massive production run, something unusual happened, something that wasn't supposed to exist. Collectors discovered a rare variation known as the close AM reverse. To understand this, you need to look very closely at the back of the coin, specifically at the word America. On most 1992 pennies, there is a noticeable gap between the letters A and M. This is called the wide AM design, and it's the standard version for that year. But a tiny number of 1992D pennies were struck with a different reverse design, one that was actually intended for proof coins, not regular circulation coins. In this version, the letters A and M in America are almost touching. This is known as the close AM variety. This small detail might seem insignificant, but in the world of coin collecting, tiny differences can mean everything. The 1992D close AM penny is one of the rarest modern Lincoln Cent varieties ever discovered. Only a handful of verified examples are known to exist, making it incredibly valuable. So how did this happen? Most experts believe it was the result of a mix-up at the Mint. Somehow, a reverse die meant for proof coins was accidentally used to strike a small number of regular circulation pennies at the Denver Mint. These coins were then released into everyday use, unnoticed for years. It wasn't until sharp-eyed collectors began closely examining their coins that this rare variety was identified. And once the discovery spread, the hunt was on. Now let's talk about value, because this is where things get really exciting. A normal 1992D penny in circulated condition is worth exactly 1 cent. Even in uncirculated condition, it might only be worth a few cents to a collector. But a genuine 1992D close AM penny? That's a completely different story. One example of this rare coin sold for over $20,000 at auction. Other specimens have reached similar prices, depending on their condition. Even lower-grade examples can sell for thousands of dollars, simply because of how rare they are. Think about that for a moment. A coin that looks almost identical to billions of others could be worth more than a brand new car. Of course, with that kind of value comes a big question. How can you tell if you have one? The key is in the details. First, you need to confirm that the coin is from 1992 and has the D Mint mark under the date. Then, you need to carefully examine the back of the coin, specifically the spacing between the A and M in America. On the rare close AM version, those letters are nearly touching, with very little space between them. On the common wide AM version, there is a clear and visible gap. Another detail to look for is the position of the designer's initials, FG, located near the base of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. On the close AM variety, these initials appear farther from the building compared to the standard version. Because the differences are so subtle, many collectors use magnifying glasses or even microscopes to examine their coins. It's not something you can always spot with the naked eye, especially if the coin is worn. And here's an important warning. Because of the high value of this coin, there are also fakes and altered coins in circulation. Some people try to modify a regular penny to make it look like the rare variety. That's why authentication is crucial. If you believe you found a 1992 D close AM penny, it's best to have it evaluated by a professional coin grading service. Beyond the close AM variety, the 1992 D penny also has a few other interesting characteristics. Like most pennies from that era, it's made of 97.5% zinc with a thin copper plating. Over time, this composition can lead to issues like bubbling or corrosion if the plating is damaged. Another thing collectors look for is overall condition. Coins that were never used in circulation, known as uncirculated coins, often have a bright, original shine and sharp details. While these aren't rare in the same way as the close AM variety, high-grade examples can still be desirable to collectors building complete sets. Here's a fun fact that surprises a lot of people. Even though billions of pennies are made each year, only a tiny fraction ever become valuable. It often comes down to small mistakes, limited production runs, or unique features that weren't intended to happen. In the case of the 1992 D penny, its value isn't about age alone. It's about that rare design variation that slipped through the cracks. Another interesting detail is how long it took for this variety to gain attention. For years, these coins circulated unnoticed. It's possible that more examples are still out there, sitting in old jars, piggy banks, or coin collections, waiting to be discovered. That idea alone keeps collectors searching. Every roll of pennies, every handful of change, carries the possibility of finding something extraordinary. So why do collectors love this coin so much today? Part of it is the thrill of the hunt. Unlike ancient coins or rare gold pieces that are locked away in museums or private collections, the 1992 D close AM penny could, in theory, still be found in everyday circulation. There's also the story behind it. This coin represents a moment of human error in a highly controlled process. It's a reminder that even in systems designed for precision, small mistakes can create something unique and valuable. And then there's the accessibility. Almost anyone can start looking for this coin. You don't need expensive equipment or years of experience to begin. All it takes is curiosity, patience, and a careful eye. For many collectors, that's what makes coins like this so special. They turn ordinary objects into hidden treasures, and they connect us to history in a very personal way. Imagine going through your spare change tonight and spotting something unusual. Imagine realizing that a coin you've had for years might be worth thousands. That possibility is what keeps the excitement alive. As we come to the end of this story, one question remains. How many of these rare 1992 D close AM pennies are still out there, waiting to be found? No one knows for sure, but history has shown that incredible discoveries can happen when you least expect them. So the next time you see a penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look, because hidden in plain sight, among billions of ordinary coins, there just might be one that changes everything. Welcome back. Imagine finding a simple penny in your pocket change that looks completely ordinary, but could secretly be worth far more than 1 cent. Today, we're uncovering the story of the 1995 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that millions of people have seen, but very few truly understand at first glance. The 1995 no mint mark Lincoln penny doesn't seem special. It's just another copper-colored coin with Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile on the front. But what makes this coin interesting is not what stands out. It's what's missing. There is no mint mark beneath the date, and for many people that raises an important question. Is it rare? Is it valuable? Or is it just another everyday penny? To understand this coin, we need to go back to 1995. This was a time when billions of pennies were being produced every year in the United States. The U.S. Mint had multiple facilities, including Philadelphia and Denver, both producing Lincoln cents in massive quantities. Coins made in Denver carry a small D mint mark, while coins from Philadelphia, during this time, often had no mint mark at all. That means the 1995 penny with no mint mark was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. And here's the key detail. This wasn't unusual. In fact, it was completely normal. In 1995 alone, over 6 billion Lincoln pennies were produced in Philadelphia, all without a mint mark. So right away, we can see that the majority of these coins are very common. But the story doesn't end there. Even though most 1995 no-mint mark pennies are common, some of them have unique characteristics that make collectors pay close attention. These small differences can turn an ordinary coin into something much more valuable. Let's talk about the design first. On the front of the coin, you'll see Abraham Lincoln facing right. This design has been used since 1909, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history. Above Lincoln's head is the word Liberty, and the year 1995 appears on the right side. The phrase "In God We Trust" arches along the top. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny image of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial. Above it reads United States of America, and below it, 1 cent. The coin itself is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper coating. By 1995, pennies were no longer made of solid copper like older coins. Instead, they contained about 97.5% zinc and only 2.5% copper. This change happened in 1982 to reduce production costs. Now here's where things get interesting. While most 1995 no-mint mark pennies are worth just 1 cent, certain versions of this coin can be worth much more, especially if they have errors or are in exceptional condition. One of the most talked about varieties is the 1995 double die obverse. This error occurs when the coin is struck with a die that has a slight misalignment, causing some of the lettering to appear doubled. On these coins, you might notice clear doubling on the words Liberty and In God We Trust. Collectors love double die coins because they are genuine mistakes from the mint, and they are relatively rare compared to standard coins. A 1995 double die penny in good condition can sell for anywhere from $20 to over $100. In higher grades, especially uncirculated coins, the value can climb even higher. Another factor that affects value is condition. Coins are graded on a scale, with higher grades meaning less wear and better overall appearance. A 1995 no-mint mark penny that has been heavily circulated might only be worth face value. But if you find one that looks almost brand new with sharp details and no scratches, it could be worth significantly more to collectors. There have been auction listings where pristine examples of 1995 pennies, especially those with strong eye appeal or grading certification, have sold for several dollars and sometimes even higher depending on demand. While these are not life-changing amounts, they show that even modern coins can have collectible value. So how can you tell if your 1995 penny is worth more than 1 cent? Start by looking closely at the front of the coin. Check for any signs of doubling in the letters, especially Liberty and In God We Trust. Use a magnifying glass if possible because the details can be very subtle. Next, examine the overall condition. Does the coin still have its original shine? Are the edges sharp, or are they worn down? Coins that have been stored carefully and never used in circulation are much more desirable. Also, be cautious of damage. Scratches, dents, or discoloration can lower the value significantly. Collectors prefer coins that are as close to their original mint condition as possible. When it comes to identifying a real coin versus a fake, the good news is that counterfeit 1995 pennies are extremely rare. Because the coin itself is not highly valuable in most cases, it is not a common target for counterfeiters. However, altered coins do exist. For example, someone might try to modify a regular penny to make it look like a double die error. That's why it's important to compare your coin with verified examples or consult a professional coin grading service if you believe you have something special. Authentication can make a big difference in value. Here's a surprising detail. Even though billions of these coins were made, many people have never taken the time to really look at them. Pennies are often overlooked, ignored, or even thrown away. But within that everyday change, there could be small variations that make certain coins stand out. Another interesting fact is that the Lincoln penny itself has gone through many changes over the years. From the original wheat design on the back to the Lincoln Memorial and later the shield design, each version tells a different part of American history. The 1995 penny is part of that long story, representing a time when the memorial design was still in use. Collectors are drawn to coins like the 1995 no-mint mark penny not because every single one is rare, but because of the possibility. The idea that a simple coin could have an error or be in perfect condition creates a sense of excitement. It turns everyday pocket change into a treasure hunt. And that's really what coin collecting is all about. It's not just the value of the coin, but the thrill of discovery. The chance that something small and ordinary could hold hidden worth. Today, the 1995 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny remains widely available. You can still find it in circulation in coin jars or even in old collections. But every time you come across one, there's a small moment of curiosity. Could this be the one with a rare error? Could this be the one that stands out? As we wrap up, remember this. Not every 1995 penny will make you rich. In fact, most won't. But the value of this coin goes beyond money. It's a reminder that even the most common objects can have stories, details, and hidden surprises waiting to be discovered. So the next time you see a penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look, because sometimes the smallest coins can hold the biggest mysteries. Welcome back. Imagine finding a simple penny in your pocket that most people would ignore. But that tiny coin could actually be worth far more than 1 cent. Today, we're diving into a modern coin that hides surprising secrets. The 2002D Mint Mark Lincoln Penny. At first glance, the 2002D Lincoln Penny doesn't look special. It's small, copper-colored, and carries the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln. You've probably seen hundreds just like it. But collectors know that even recent coins can hold hidden value, and sometimes, the smallest details can turn an ordinary penny into something worth keeping. This coin was minted in the year 2002 at the Denver Mint, which is why it carries the small D mint mark just below the date. The Lincoln penny itself has a long history that began in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday. By 2002, the design had already become one of the most recognized in American coinage. On the front, or obverse, you'll see Lincoln's profile, along with the words "In God We Trust" above, "Liberty" to the left, and the date with the D mint mark on the right. On the back, the coin still features the Lincoln Memorial design, which was used from 1959 until 2008. If you look closely, you can even spot a tiny image of the Lincoln statue inside the memorial, a detail many people miss. Now here's something important. Even though this coin was made in modern times, it isn't made of solid copper. By 2002, Lincoln pennies were struck using a zinc core with a thin copper coating. That means the coin is actually about 97.5% zinc and only 2.5% copper. This change was made back in 1982 to reduce production costs, but it also created new types of errors and variations that collectors watch for. So what makes the 2002D penny interesting? The answer lies in condition, errors, and subtle variations. While millions of these coins were produced, only a small number exist in near-perfect condition. Coins that have never been used in circulation, known as uncirculated coins, can be worth much more than face value. And if a coin reaches a high grade, meaning it has sharp details, strong luster, and no visible wear, its value can increase significantly. But the real excitement begins when we talk about errors. Error coins are mistakes made during the minting process, and they are highly sought after by collectors. With the 2002D penny, some known errors include off-center strikes, die cracks, and double die errors. A double die error happens when the design is stamped more than once in slightly different positions. This can cause letters or numbers to appear doubled. For example, you might notice doubling in the word "Liberty" or in the date. These small differences can turn a 1-cent coin into something worth tens or even hundreds of dollars. Another interesting error is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin blank is not properly aligned during minting, resulting in a design that looks shifted or incomplete. The more dramatic the error, the more valuable the coin can become. Die cracks are another feature collectors look for. These appear as raised lines on the coin's surface and are caused by cracks in the minting die. While some die cracks are common, certain patterns or unusual placements can make a coin more desirable. Now let's talk about value. In most cases, a circulated 2002D penny is still worth just 1 cent. But in uncirculated condition, these coins can sell for a few dollars, depending on their quality. High-grade examples, especially those graded by professional services, can reach values of $20, $30, or even $50 or more. Error coins can be worth much higher amounts. Some collectors have paid over $100 for strong double-die examples or significant minting errors. While these prices may not sound life-changing, they show how even modern coins can carry hidden value. There have also been auction listings where near-perfect 2002D pennies, graded at the highest levels, have sold for impressive prices compared to their face value. These coins are rare because most pennies go straight into circulation and get worn down over time. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 2002D penny? First, check the condition. Look for coins that still have their original shine, with no scratches or discoloration. These are more likely to be valuable. Next, examine the details closely. Use a magnifying glass if possible. Look for any doubling in the letters or numbers, unusual lines, or misaligned designs. These could indicate an error coin. Also, make sure the coin is genuine. A real 2002D penny should have a consistent copper color and proper weight, which is about 2.5 grams. If the coin feels unusually light or heavy, or if the color looks off, it may not be authentic. Another tip is to compare your coin with known examples. Many collectors use online images or coin guides to identify specific errors or variations. The more you study, the easier it becomes to spot something unusual. Here's a fun fact. Even though the 2002D penny is a modern coin, it still carries the legacy of one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history. The Lincoln Memorial reverse was used for nearly 50 years, making it one of the most familiar images in American currency. Another surprising detail is that billions of pennies are produced every year, yet only a tiny fraction become collectible. This means that valuable coins are often hiding in plain sight, mixed in with everyday pocket change. Collectors also enjoy searching through rolls of pennies from banks, hoping to find rare or high-grade examples. This activity, known as coin roll hunting, has become a popular hobby because it combines the thrill of discovery with the possibility of finding something valuable. So, do collectors still care about a coin like the 2002D penny? The answer is simple. It represents the idea that value isn't always obvious. Even a coin that seems ordinary can hold a story, a mistake, or a level of preservation that makes it special. For many collectors, it's not just about the money. It's about the hunt, the history, and the excitement of finding something unique. Every coin has a journey, from the moment it was struck at the mint to the hands it passes through over the years. And the 2002D penny is no exception. It may have started as just another coin in a massive production line, but over time, certain examples have become collectibles, proving that even modern coins can gain importance. As we look closer at coins like this, we start to see them differently. They're not just spare change. They're tiny pieces of history, each with its own details and potential. So the next time you come across a 2002D Lincoln penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Check the details. You might just discover something that others have overlooked. Because sometimes, the smallest coin can carry the biggest surprise. Welcome back. What if the penny sitting in your pocket right now isn't just small change, but a hidden opportunity? A coin most people ignore every day, quietly passing from hand to hand, could actually hold surprising value. Today, we're uncovering the story behind the 2006D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a modern coin that might look ordinary, but has layers of history, detail, and collector interest that many people completely overlook. The 2006D Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced at the Denver Mint, which is why you'll see a small D stamped just below the date on the front. At first glance, it doesn't seem special. It carries the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back, a design that many Americans have seen their entire lives. But like many coins, its true story goes far beyond what you notice at first glance. To understand this coin, we have to go back to its roots. The Lincoln penny design first appeared in 1909, created to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person, which was a bold decision at the time. By 2006, this design had already been in circulation for nearly a century. That means the 2006 penny represents the later years of one of the longest-running coin designs in American history, just a few years before the design would change in 2009 for Lincoln's bicentennial. The D mint mark tells us this coin was struck in Denver, Colorado, at one of the major United States mint facilities. In 2006, billions of pennies were produced between different mints, including Philadelphia and Denver. Because so many were made, most people assume these coins are worthless beyond their face value. And for many examples, that's true. But the real story begins when we look closer at condition, variations, and the small details that collectors care about. The 2006 D penny is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This composition has been standard since 1982, when the U.S. Mint shifted away from solid copper to reduce costs. The coin weighs about 2.5 grams and has a smooth edge. On the front, you'll see Lincoln's profile facing right, along with the words "In God We Trust" above, "Liberty" to the left, and the year 2006 with the D mint mark just below it. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall, with the words "United States of America" and "E pluribus unum" above, and 1 cent below. If you look very closely, you can even spot a tiny image of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, a detail that many people miss entirely. Now here's where things get interesting. While most 2006 D pennies are common, certain versions can be worth significantly more depending on their condition and whether they have any minting errors. Coin collecting isn't just about age. It's about rarity, quality, and uniqueness. Even a modern coin can become valuable if it has something unusual about it. One of the biggest factors is condition. Coins are graded on a scale, with higher grades meaning fewer imperfections. A 2006 D penny that has never been used, often called mint state, can be worth more than a circulated one. If the coin still has its original shine and no visible wear, collectors may pay a premium for it. Then there are error coins. These are coins that were struck incorrectly during the minting process. For the 2006 D penny, some known errors include off-center strikes, double dies, and die cracks. A double die error happens when the design is stamped more than once slightly out of alignment, creating a noticeable doubling effect on the letters or numbers. These errors can make a coin far more valuable because they are rare and unique. There have also been examples of coins with weak strikes or misaligned dies, where parts of the design appear faded or shifted. While these might look like flaws, they can actually increase the coin's value if they are confirmed as genuine mint errors. When it comes to real-world value, most circulated 2006 D pennies are worth exactly 1 cent. However, uncirculated coins in excellent condition can sell for a few dollars, sometimes even higher depending on the grade. Error coins are where the real excitement lies. Some collectors have paid anywhere from $10 to over $100 for specific error varieties, especially if the error is clear and well preserved. There have been auction listings where high-grade examples, graded by professional services, have reached prices far above their face value. While they won't make you a millionaire overnight, they prove that even modern coins can have surprising worth under the right conditions. So how do you tell if your 2006 D penny is valuable or just another coin? Start by checking the mint mark. Look for the small D under the year. Next, examine the coin's condition. Is it shiny, clean, and free of scratches? Or is it worn and dull from circulation? The better the condition, the higher the potential value. Then, look closely for errors. Use a magnifying glass if possible. Check the letters, numbers, and edges. Do you see any doubling, unusual marks, or misalignment? These small details can make a big difference. It's also important to compare your coin with verified examples or have it evaluated by a professional grading service if you believe it might be special. Another important tip is to be cautious of fake claims rather than fake coins. Because the 2006 penny is so common, the coin itself is rarely counterfeited. However, people sometimes exaggerate its value online. Always rely on trusted sources, real auction results, and verified grading companies when determining a coin's worth. Here's a fun fact that might surprise you. Even though billions of pennies are produced each year, many of them never stay in circulation for long. Pennies are often lost, thrown away, or stored in jars and never used again. Over time, this can actually reduce the number of high-quality examples available, which is one reason why pristine coins become more valuable. Another interesting detail is that the Lincoln Memorial design used on the 2006 penny was retired just a few years later in 2009. That means coins like this represent the final chapter of a design that lasted 50 years. from 1959 to 2008. For collectors, that adds a sense of historical importance, even if the coin itself isn't extremely rare. Collectors love the 2006 D penny for a few simple reasons. It's easy to find, which makes it accessible for beginners. It also offers the thrill of discovery, since anyone can search their pocket change and potentially find a valuable error. And for more advanced collectors, it's a piece of a larger story, part of the long-running Lincoln Cent series that spans more than a century. There's also something satisfying about collecting coins that most people overlook. It turns an everyday object into something meaningful. A penny becomes more than just currency. It becomes history, craftsmanship, and sometimes even a small treasure waiting to be discovered. As we wrap up, think about this. How many pennies have you handled without a second thought? How many times have you ignored the small details that might tell a bigger story? The 2006 D Lincoln penny may not seem extraordinary at first, but it reminds us that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it's hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to look closer. And the next time you find a penny in your pocket, take a moment before you spend it. Because that small, copper-colored coin might just have a story worth far more than 1 cent. Welcome back. Imagine picking up a simple penny from your pocket, barely giving it a second glance, and then discovering that this ordinary coin could be hiding details most people never notice, details that collectors quietly search for every single day. Today, we're talking about the 2018 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that millions of people have handled, spent, or ignored, but very few have truly examined. At first glance, the 2018 Lincoln penny looks just like any modern cent. It's small, copper-colored, and easy to overlook. But behind that simple appearance is a story of history, precision, and hidden details that make it more interesting than you might expect. The D Mint mark on this coin tells us it was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the main facilities responsible for creating circulating coins in the United States. The Lincoln penny itself has a long and important history. First introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln, it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. Over time, the design has changed, but the meaning has remained the same. By 2018, the penny had already gone through several design updates, including the modern reverse introduced in 2010, which shows a shield representing unity and strength. The 2018 D penny continues this modern design. On the front, you see Lincoln's profile facing right, calm and thoughtful. Above his head is the word Liberty, and to the right, the year 2018, along with the small but important D Mint mark. On the reverse side, the shield design stands strong, with 1 cent and United States of America clearly stamped, along with the national motto E Pluribus Unum. Now, let's talk about what this coin is made of. Like most modern pennies, the 2018 D Lincoln cent is not pure copper. Instead, it has a core made mostly of zinc, with a thin outer layer of copper. This composition was introduced in 1982 to reduce production costs. While that might sound less valuable, it actually opens the door to certain types of errors and variations that collectors find fascinating. And this is where things get interesting. Even though billions of 2018 D pennies were produced, not all of them are exactly the same. Small mistakes during the minting process can create rare and valuable variations. These are known as mint errors, and they can turn an ordinary penny into something much more special. One type of error collectors look for is a die crack. This happens when the metal die used to strike the coin begins to crack after repeated use. When that crack transfers onto the coin, it creates a raised line that shouldn't be there. Another sought-after error is a double die, where parts of the design appear slightly doubled due to a misalignment during the striking process. There are also off-center strikes, where the coin design is not perfectly aligned, leaving part of the blank visible. While these errors may seem like flaws, collectors often see them as unique fingerprints, making each coin one of a kind. But here's the truth that many people don't realize. Not every 2018 D penny is valuable. In fact, most are still worth just 1 cent. What separates a common coin from a collectible one is condition and rarity. Condition plays a huge role. Coins that have never been circulated, known as uncirculated coins, often hold more value because they retain their original shine and detail. Collectors grade coins based on their condition, Using a scale that ranges from heavily worn to perfect mint state, that a 2018 D penny in average condition might not attract much attention. But if you find one in near-perfect condition with no scratches, no wear, and full original luster, its value can increase significantly. In some cases, high-grade examples of the 2018 D Lincoln penny have sold for several dollars, and even higher if they are professionally graded and certified. Coins graded at the top of the scale, such as MS 67 or above, are especially rare because it's difficult for coins to survive the minting and distribution process without tiny imperfections. Now let's talk about real collector interest. While the 2018 D penny is not considered a classic rare coin, it has become part of modern coin collecting trends. Many collectors are now focusing on building complete sets of Lincoln pennies by year and mint mark. That means every single coin, including the 2018 D, plays a role in completing that collection. And for collectors who focus on perfection, even a modern coin can become valuable if it meets the highest standards. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 2018 D penny? First, look closely at the mint mark. It should be a clear, small D located just below the year. If it looks unusual, blurry, or doubled, that could be worth a closer inspection. Next, examine the surface of the coin. Look for anything out of the ordinary, such as raised lines, unusual marks, or parts of the design that seem duplicated. These could indicate a mint error. Then, check the overall condition. Is the coin shiny? Are the details sharp and crisp? Does it look like it just came from the mint? The better the condition, the higher the potential value. One important thing to remember is authenticity. While pennies are rarely counterfeited due to their low value, altered coins do exist. Some people may try to modify coins to make them appear like error coins. Always be cautious and compare your coin with verified examples. If you believe you have something special, you can consider sending it to a professional grading service. These organizations evaluate the coin's condition, confirm its authenticity, and assign it a grade. This not only protects the coin, but also makes it easier to sell or trade. Now here's something most people don't know. The US Mint produces billions of coins each year, but very few are preserved in perfect condition. Think about that. Out of all the 2018 D pennies made, only a tiny fraction will remain flawless over time. That's why collectors pay attention to even the smallest details. Another surprising fact is that modern coins like the 2018 D penny are becoming more popular among younger collectors. Unlike older rare coins that can cost thousands of dollars, modern coins are affordable and accessible. This allows new collectors to enter the hobby without a huge investment. And sometimes, the thrill isn't just about money. It's about the hunt. The idea that you might find something rare in your everyday change is what keeps people searching. Collectors also love the story behind each coin. The 2018 D penny represents a specific moment in time. It was created in a modern era, yet it continues a tradition that started over a century ago. Holding one is like holding a small piece of history that connects past and present. There's also a sense of completion. For someone building a Lincoln penny collection, missing even 1 year or mint mark leaves the set unfinished. The 2018 D coin becomes a necessary piece of that larger puzzle. And let's not forget the emotional side of collecting. Many people start with coins they find in their pocket, just like this one. Over time, that curiosity grows into a deeper appreciation for history, design, and rarity. So the next time you come across a 2018 D Lincoln penny, don't just spend it without a second thought. Take a moment, look at it closely, check the details. Because even though most of these coins are common, a few could stand out in ways you never expected. Maybe it has an unusual mark. Maybe it's in near-perfect condition. Or maybe it's simply the start of your journey into coin collecting. And that's the real story behind this coin. It's not just about value. It's about awareness. It's about seeing something ordinary in a completely new way. Because sometimes the smallest coins carry the biggest surprises. And who knows, the next time you reach into your pocket, you might already be holding one.